Good morning, students. Am I audible, students?
Yes, ma'am.
I think screen is also visible to everyone. Okay, so in the last lecture we have discussed about a function, how to write the function or how to declare the functions. Yes. Yes or no, students? Now today we will see how we can write these functions inside a class or inside or how we will be using these functions in a C++ program. So we are actually starting with classes and object. Though the name I have given to today's lecture as functions, I thought some topics are there to take it from the functions, but now that we will be covering, we will be talking about functions, but that functions we are talking with respect to classes and objects. So we are starting with a new chapter, classes and object. So what we are going to discuss here, in C language you have studied about the structures. Yes. Yes, students. And when we are talking about the structures, what we know about the structure, in a particular structure, what we can do, we can define the different data types of a particular object or of a particular entity. Like suppose if I wanted to create a structure of a student. Now structure of student will have its own various fields, like student will have his name, student will have his roll number, student will have his marks, his date of birth or whatever the rest of information I wanted to store it for one particular student. Now this structure is similar for all the students of a one particular class. So then what I can do, I can create a structure by writing struct student, and in that I can define all the variables that are required to take the data of a student. Yes or no? Yes or no, students? Why you are not replying today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now what happens, like if you wanted to create, now I will show you first how we write the structure. So forget about this program. Suppose this is a C window, and in this C window, this time if I wanted to create a structure, I will write it like this: struct student, then in a bracket I will write what are the values that I wanted to store for a student. So I wanted to store the name of the student, so I will create a name array of a particular size so that I can store the name of the student. Then I will create a roll number which will be of integer variable, and suppose I am creating one more variable, that is marks. So this is the structure of the student which I can apply to thousands of the student of a particular class or of a particular college or whatever it is. So what happens and when we create this structure, the structure format always will have a semicolon at the end. So this keyword which we are using, this struct keyword which you can see it over here, this struct keyword declares the student as a new data type. क्या कर रहा है वो, एक नया वेरिएबल, नया डेटा टाइप क्रिएट कर रहा है. And that data type struct, what is struct keyword which we are using, what it is doing, it declares student as a new data type which can hold 3 fields. When we are writing struct student, see I am repeating it again. What this struct is doing, it declares another data type or a new data type, you can say. We don't have any data type called as student. So we are creating a new data type with this structure, and that data type is called as what? Student. And which can have 3 different values, 3 different fields. What are values I can have or I can store for the student? I can store I can store name, roll number and marks. Okay. Now these fields are called as structure members or the elements of your structure. They are called as the members of your structure or they are called as the elements of your structure. Okay. So the identifier student, which is referred to as structure name or structure tag, that can we can use that to create the variables of style or variables of a particular type student. Okay, so in C declaration, if suppose now I wanted to create a new student, so how will I create that declare that student? I will write struct student. This I am talking in terms of C language. This we will not do it in C++. We will create it like this. So A, what will be A? A will be a variable of type student. ए क्या हो गया, वेरिएबल हो गया, और स्टूडेंट क्या हो गया अभी, डेटा टाइप. जैसे हम लोग लिखते हैं ना ये कैर नेम, सो कैर इज योर डेटा टाइप एंड नेम इज व्हाट, नेम इज व्हाट, नेम इज अ वेरिएबल. सो सिमिलरली ए इज अ वेरिएबल एंड स्टूडेंट इज अ, so A is a variable and student is what, a data type. Okay. So A is a variable of type student and it has 3 member variables that will be defined as what, defined by a particular template. So then I can use A dot roll number. I can see now A is a variable. So with that variable, I can refer to the members of my structure. So what all members I have? I have name. So I can write A dot name is equal to, I can assign a particular value. Then I can write A dot, suppose ABC I am writing. Then I wanted to write A, I wanted to assign roll number. So I will write A dot roll number is equal to suppose 15. Like that I will write. So this is what the assignment of your variables. ये जो members है उसको कुछ value assign करने का है तो मैं I am doing it with this variable. I am accessing these members with this variable. Just a minute. Now, so this is how you declare your variables or this is how you create your structures. Hope this is clear to everyone in your C. Is this clear to everyone, students? Yes, students, is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell once again?
See, this I have told you about the C language. This I am talking about the C language. In C language, how you create the structure. When do you want to create or when you will create the structure? If suppose you wanted to make use of one particular object in such a way that it can hold the various values. Like when you're talking about a student, student can have a roll number, student can have a name, student can have marks. So if I wanted to store these details for multiple students, so what I can do, now these are the basic things that I need for a student. So I will create one structure of that particular type student. So what I am doing when I am writing the struct student, what it is doing, it is creating a data type of student. एक structure बन जाता है student data type का, and that holds the 3 fields. This or whenever you are referring to the student data type, it can refer to these 3 members or these 3 fields. So what are the fields you have? Name, roll number and marks. So if I wanted to assign any value or if I wanted to access this, first of all I need to create the variable of this data type. हम लोग हमेशा क्या करते हैं, whenever we wanted to use or whenever we wanted to hold store a value of a particular data type, we first create a variable of that particular data type. So similarly here also what we do in C, what we do, we create a variable of that data type. So A becomes a variable of data type student, and then with that A you can access the members of your data type. So what all members you have? So I can write A dot name is equal to ABC. I can write A dot roll number. I can write A dot marks, and I can assign the values. Okay. So this way the structures are being used in your C, but there is some limitations you have with your C structure. Now, what is this limitation? Actually, when you're talking about the standard C, it does not allow the struct data type to be treated like your built-in types. Means you cannot use the structure data type as your built-in type, right? Like suppose when you are writing this struct student, and then inside that you have declared these variables. So what you wanted to do, what you have to, when you are creating this variable, for the variable also you have to write this keyword struct. While creating the variable also you have to write this keyword struct. See, when we are creating this variable name, we are just writing char as a data type. We are not writing struct in front of it, right? So what happens? Now when you create this variable, using that they can assign the value using the dot operator, right? But we cannot perform any kind of arithmetic operation or any other operation on that particular variables. Like suppose now if I wanted to concatenate name and roll number, so that will not be possible with this. That will not be possible with whatever the number of variables you have. Like suppose now I have two objects of this structure a comma b. If I've created that, so that means I can write a dot name also and I can write a dot roll number also. Same way I can write b dot name also and I can write b dot roll number also. But if any particular time if I am writing a dot name plus b dot name, if I wanted to concatenate two students ka name, then that is not possible with your C language. Understood? Understood, students?
Yes, ma'am.
So to overcome this problem, the limitation you have with the C structure, we have a C++ which supports the features of this structure the way they are defined in the C language. And what C++ has done, C++ has expanded its capabilities what you can say, whatever the features that we have discussed in OOPS language. Whatever the features that we have, the features or characteristics we have discussed about the OOPS, the characteristics of OOPS, that can be implemented easily with the expanded behavior that you have added in C++. So what it is trying to do, it attempts to bring the user-defined types close to your built-in data types. And also it means when you're talking about this data type, it also provides a facility to hide the data which we have discussed as one of the property of OOPS. Okay, even inheritance and all the other characteristics that we have discussed, even that will be easier for you to implement it using this extension. So in C++, a structure can have both variables and functions as the members. So in C++ also we can make use of the structures which can have variables also and functions also as a member. So it can also declare some of its member variables as private and some of the variables as public. Okay, now in C++, so when they have implemented this expanded behavior of structure, this expanded behavior of structures were called as the classes. Okay. So instead of using that struct keyword, we can simply have a particular, like instead of writing the struct keyword in C++, there is no need to write the struct keyword. We can simply write the student followed by whatever the variables we are creating. Okay, so the difference that we have between structure and classes in your C++ is that by default the members of a class are private, while by default the members of your structure are public. Please remember this. By default the structure of your by default the members of your structure are uh, public, whereas by default the members of your class are private. Okay. So the extension that is being added is what called as user defined type. In C++, the extensions with respect to the structures, whatever these extensions are added, they are called as what? User defined type, and this user defined type is what called as your class. Okay. So there is very little difference you have between structures and classes in C++. They can be used interchangeably with also with certain modifications. Now class is a specially introduced data type in C++. So that's why most of the C++ programmer, they will try to use classes instead of structures. Okay, for holding various your data and functions or member variables. So we will see how the class is declared. Now we will see how the classes are declared, how the classes and functions, class function definitions are defined. That all we are going to study today. Okay. So here when you're talking about a class, just remember that what is a class? A class is actually, you can say that it's a simple way to bind your data and all its associated functions with each other. What is a class? A class is a way to hold, or you can say a class is a way to bind the data and all the associated functions together. Okay, so it allows the data, that is the functions, to be hidden if it is required from the external use. And when we are defining a class, we are creating a new abstract data type. Whenever you will say that you are creating a class, means what? You are creating an abstract data type. So we have seen abstraction as one of the property of your OOPS language. Yes or no, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Remember that whenever we are creating a class, class becomes your user defined data type because you are creating it. That's why it is called as user defined. User is defining it. That's why this particular whatever the class you will create, it will be called as your user defined data type. Okay. And this class allows us to hide some of the features, like some of the variables you can make it private, or some of the functions you can make it private. So that means whenever we are defining a class, we are actually creating an abstract data type, right? Because abstraction means what? Hiding some data from the unknown people. Okay, so that's why this abstract data type gives gives its the features like your built-in data type, and that's why classes are more powerful than your structures. Okay, so how your classes are declared? This basic class declaration I have already told you. Always your class declaration. See, first we always talk about the class declaration. Class declaration always describes the type and scope of its member, right? So whenever you are creating a class, you will always writing this class keyword followed by a class name that you wanted to, the class which you wanted to create. Okay, class will be followed by your class name, open the curly bracket, and then you will be writing the class function definitions. Sorry, then you will be writing the members that you wanted to, the members that you wanted to define for that particular class. Like whatever the class you are creating, what all members you wanted to have, or what all member functions you wanted to have, that you will write it. So by default, I said if you will not specify this access specifier, by default it will be private. But you can specify it also. That is, there is no problem. If you wanted to, you can write private. Otherwise, not required. Then I will be writing variable declaration. Here what comes? My variable declaration, followed by, if I have any function, then I will be having function declaration. Similarly, I can have public access specifier also. In that also I will be having certain, sorry, variable function declaration. So this is, and then as I said, at the end of when you're closing the class, your class will be always terminated with semicolon in your C++. This is with respect to only C++ language. This is the syntax of your class. All of you please remember this, because you have to use this syntax for all the programs that you are writing it using a class. Whenever you are writing a class, you will be writing it with the class keyword followed by the class name. Now what is this private? Private is the access specifier which says that जो भी इधर variables या फिर functions तुम लोग declare करोगे. In the last lecture I have told you the difference between function declaration and function definition. Yes or no? वेरिएबल डिक्लेरेशन एंड असाइनिंग वैल्यूज टू वेरिएबल्स, दिस आई हैव टोल्ड यू इन द लास्ट लेक्चर. तो जो भी हम लोग वेरिएबल डिक्लेरेशन करते हैं वो यहाँ पे होता है इनसाइड अ क्लास. ओके, इनसाइड अ क्लास यू कैन हैव अ फंक्शन डेफिनेशन आल्सो, बट पहले हम लोग ये लिखेंगे. व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय वेरिएबल डिक्लेरेशन? लाइक आई विल बी राइटिंग इंट a. This is what called as your variable declaration. Okay, when I am writing int a, this is what my variable declaration. Okay, when I am writing function declaration, what do you mean by function declaration? If I am writing int add and then if I am passing any value to it, when I am writing it like this is what my function declaration. Now if I am writing it private, what do you mean by private? That means the scope of this int a variable and the scope of this function int add will be within this class. It will not be outside the class. Hope this is clear to everyone. Yes, students. Is this clear to everyone?
No, ma'am.
No. Who said no?
Carefully, ma'am.
Carefully not clear. Should I explain
No.
it once again? Okay,
Yes,
listen.
ma'am.
See, this is just a normal declaration I am telling you. I am explaining, I am giving you the structure, syntax बोल रही हूँ मैं अभी. जब हम लोग सिंटैक्स लिखते हैं कोई भी क्लास क्रिएट करने का, तो उसका एक स्पेसिफाइड सिंटैक्स है. तो व्हाट दैट सिंटैक्स सेज, whenever you are creating a class, you should always create a class with a class keyword followed by the class name. I will give you the example of this afterwards, but first I am just explaining you this thing. तो अगर सपोज क्लास स्टूडेंट क्रिएट करना है तो मैं पहले क्या कीवर्ड लिखेगी, क्लास फॉलोड बाय क्लास नेम विल बी स्टूडेंट. देन आई एम राइटिंग एक्सेस स्पेसिफायर. ये एक्सेस स्पेसिफायर इफ यू रिमेंबर लास्ट टू लास्ट लेक्चर में मैंने बोला था, जो भी तुम लोग क्लास के लिए मेंबर्स बनाना चाहते हो, लाइक स्टूडेंट के लिए जैसे अभी मैंने लिखा था कि इंट नेम, इंट रोल नंबर, सॉरी कैरेक्टर नेम, इंट रोल नंबर एंड इंट फ्लोट मार्क्स, दीज आर द मेंबर्स ऑफ योर क्लास स्टूडेंट. Okay, these are the members of that student. Okay, so if I wanted to declare that variables, where will I declare it? So I have to declare it inside the class only, so that they becomes a member of your class. Okay, but you can declare them as private or you can declare them as public. Why? Because as I told you, like we wanted to implement oops का functionalities also. oops का characteristics भी तुम्हारा program में आना चाहिए अभी in all the C++ program. So suppose certain details you wanted to hide from someone, like I don't wanted to show the names of the student to the whole class. I just wanted to share the marks with the roll numbers. Sorry, I don't wanted to show the names of the student. I just wanted to show the roll number and the marks. So what I can do, I can declare that name variable as private and I can declare that roll number and marks as public. Understood? So जो भी वेरिएबल डिक्लेरेशन या फिर फंक्शन डिक्लेरेशन है वो तुम लोग either you can declare it as in the private section or you can declare it in the public section. Even if you'll not write this private, it's okay, because by default C++ takes anything which is not mentioned, anything which you have declared inside a class, and if it is not mentioned, by default it will take it as private only. Is this clear now?
Yes, ma'am.
This keyword which you have, public and private, the private which I have written it over here, I'll write it again. This keywords private, or this keyword private and public will be always followed by colon. Please remember this. If you are writing this public or private, please give the colon after that keyword without space. And then you will be writing your variables or the function. So when you are writing this private or public, what does this keywords are known as? These keywords are known as your visibility labels. Visibility. Now what do you mean by visibility? Visibility मतलब क्या, वो कैसा विजिबिलिटी देगा तुम्हारा वेरिएबल्स को. तो इसके अंदर जो भी तुम लोग वेरिएबल्स डिक्लेयर करोगे, दैट वेरिएबल्स और द फंक्शंस विल बी विजिबल ओनली विद इन क्लास. प्राइवेट के अंदर जो भी वेरिएबल्स तुम लोग डिक्लेयर करोगे या फिर फंक्शन डिक्लेयर करोगे, दैट विल बी विजिबल ओनली विद इन द क्लास. मतलब क्या, उसका स्कोप सिर्फ ये क्लास में है, यू कैन नॉट यूज इट आउटसाइड द क्लास. बट इफ सपोज इफ यू हैव डिक्लेयर एनी वेरिएबल in the public section, variable or the functions in the public section, that means you can use them outside the class also. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, is this clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
So this you have to remember. Always your class will be followed by class name, followed by certain variables and the functions, and then you can have, if you wanted to have, you can have another public variables and functions also. Now I'll show you one simple example how we will write a class. Now suppose I am creating a class item. I'm creating this class item. In the class item, I am writing int number cost. Then I am writing public access specifier, and here I am writing void get data then I am declaring one more function data, and since I don't want it to return anything inside this function, so I am writing void. This is the example of your class structure. All of you please note it down. See what I have done, I have written one class followed by the class name as item. Now I have not specified the access specifier over here, और the visibility mode इसको नहीं लिखा, तो इसका visibility mode क्या रहेगा int number and float cost का? What is the visibility mode of these two variables? Yes, students. Yes, students. What will
Ma'am.
the yes? Yes, Cap. What will the
Ma'am,
visibility mode?
it would be private.
Yes, it will be private. So please remember that if nothing is written, then that means the scope of these two variables will be private. And then ये क्या है? Variables है. This is what your variable declaration is. Variable declaration. Okay. This is your variable declaration. This is also your variable declaration. Okay. Then ये क्या है? What is this called as? Yes, anyone? What is this called as?
Which one, ma'am?
Function declaration.
This one.
Function declaration.
Yes. I think someone else also said.
She said function description.
Acha.
Function declaration.
Ah, yes, it is function declaration. So this is your function declaration. Sorry. This is your function declaration. Okay, but now what happens? See, now since I have declared this function, I need to define it somewhere. And since these two functions are defined in the public, means the visibility mode of these two functions are public, that means what? I can use them outside the class. Yes or no, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, Abhi, suppose you have written this much. So now somewhere you have to write the definitions of this particular class. So the definitions of your member functions, you can write it inside the class or you can write it outside the class also. But अगर class के अंदर ही तुमने function का definition लिखा, तो then there is no need of writing the declaration of that particular function. Function declare करने का जरूरत नहीं है. See, why we are declaring these functions inside the class? When you are declaring the functions and the variables inside the class, it means that that function and the variables are the members of your class. Are you getting? These variables, whatever you have declared, and the functions are the members of your class. See, like suppose when I am saying FYIT. Now in FYIT there are so many students, but each one of you have your roll number, each one of you have your name, with which we can classify each one of the student. But all of you belong to the same class. That is FYT. So that means what? You are the member of FYT class. So I can define a function to display your names. I can define the functions to display your marks. So that will be my function. Okay, but whatever the details that I wanted to have with respect to you, like your name, roll number, that will be my variables. Are you getting, students? So I can declare, I can write a class FYT in which I can display the result of a student, and I can or otherwise I can take the name, roll number as an input from the student and then display the result of the student. Yes or no? Yes or no, students? Are you getting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So first we will see a simple method of writing your functions inside the class. What I said, अगर function, if you wanted to define function definition मतलब क्या? A function body, which we have seen in the last lecture. If you wanted to write the function body inside the class, then there is no need of declaration. Okay, declaration क्यों करते हैं हम लोग? Just to make sure that function is a member of that class or it is a part of the class. इसके लिए हम लोग declare करते हैं. But अगर वो function का body तुम लोग class के अंदर ही लिख रहे हो, if you are writing it inside the class, there is no need to write the declaration. You can simply write the function body. So if I wanted to write the function body, how will I write it? Inside the class, if I wanted to write the function body, how will I write it? So if I wanted to do that, what I will be writing? I will be writing it like this. I will remove this now. Have you copied this? Students, please copy this one first. Yes, students.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, since I wanted to write the function body, so function, always your function declaration will not have a, function definition will not have a semicolon at the end. So what will I do? I will write void get data and I will simply open the bracket over here. Okay. Function definition will never have the semicolon at the end. सिर्फ declare करने के time पे semicolon रहेगा, नहीं तो semicolon नहीं रहेगा. Now what I wanted to do, I wanted to get data मतलब क्या? मुझे कुछ values assign करना है. Maybe I wanted to assign some values to it, like that. Okay. So what I can do it here now, I can simply write, since see for this class item I have this variable number and cost, but get data को कुछ और values pass कर रही हूँ मैं a and b, वो a and b ये number and cost को देना है. So what I will write? I will write number is equal to a and I will write cost is equal to b. Make sure that the data type of these parameters which you have passed and the data types which you have declared over here are same. So it is same. So I will be writing it like this. Okay. Then similarly I have another function called as void put data. अभी ये भी मुझे इधर ही display करना है, sorry इधर ही define करना है. तो I will remove the semicolon. I will open the bracket and what I will write? Now put data, normally what it does, it just simply displays the values. Put data मतलब suppose मुझे display करना है, तो I will simply write cout equals to number, then you can give slash and or you can write the enter cout cost is equal to, this is the simple program I am showing you now. Cost. This is how functions can be defined inside the class. This is what called as, see, get data and put data. ये दो क्या है? Functions है. तो हम लोगों ने क्या किया? ये function body we have written it inside the class. Is your program complete, students? Is your program complete now? Yes, students. Is your program will it get executed now? Yes, students, please reply.
Ma'am, main function.
Yes. It will not get executed because we know that C++ compilers requires a main function. Your program execution will start from where? It will start from main only. But we have not written main function. So how our class will get executed? No, it will not at all get executed. This is just the class structure you have written, but you have not yet written the main part. So until and unless you will not write the main part, your program will not get executed. So to write this main part, what you need to do? You need to write the main function. So now I'll be opening a bracket and then I'll be writing a main function. So how will I be writing this main function? What all I need to do in that particular main function to execute this class? See, your program execution starts from main only. So now what you wanted to do? You want this class also to get executed. So I need to write some statement with which the class will also get invoked and it will get executed. Are you getting? So what you need to do for that, if you want your class to get executed, so what you need to do in your main function, you create the object of the class. Object मतलब क्या? Object is an instance of your class which represents your class, because we don't have anything in main. We have written everything about the class is defined outside the class. So to become the member of that particular get that particular class executed, you need to create the instance of that particular class, and the instance of the class is always called as your object. So how you will create this object? So to create the object of your class, you need to write the class name followed by any variable. So if I am writing item x, so x becomes the variable, or you can say x becomes the object of that particular class. तो मतलब क्या हुआ अभी ये? Item has become our data type and x has become our variable. That's why it is called as your user defined data type. What we have done? We have written item as a data type because item is our class name. We have created this class which is a user defined data type. So item has become your data type and x has become the variable. But in our C++ language, we will call this x as object, and you can create any number of objects of this particular data type. So I can write x comma y comma z. So that means I am creating 3 objects of this class item. If I am writing this, that means all these 3 objects are representing the values of this class item. Means I can refer with x also, I can refer to the number and cost. With y also I can refer to the number and cost, and with z also I can refer to the number and cost. Okay, so x becomes the object. Now what all I have to do with this x? So with this x, I can call the member functions or the member variable of my class. So I can write x dot the first method that I need, that is get data, and since this method requires 2 parameters to pass, so I need to pass 2 values. One will be of integer type and another will be of float type. So I'll be passing the values as 200 comma suppose 50 dot 50. Then x dot another method I will call put data. I will call this one. This is what your function calling. This is what my function definition. This is which will be followed by a semicolon. So I will write x dot put data. And then since it is a main method, so I need to write return 0. Are you getting the students, or should I explain it once again? Yes, students. Is this clear to you what I have done inside the main function?
Ma'am,
Yes,
what
ma'am.
will be the output of this program?
हाँ, आउटपुट आई विल शो यू. सी फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल जस्ट अंडरस्टैंड क्या किया है मैंने. क्लास स्ट्रक्चर एक लिखा, but we want that class to be executed from main because our compiler will start from main only. तो main को पता कैसे चलेगा कि how it has to execute that class. So what always we need to do whenever we will create a class, to make that class executed by your C++ compiler, you need to create the object of that particular class. What do you mean by object? Object is nothing but what? The instance of your class. Or you can say that with object you are representing that class in the main function. Okay, so what happens, or object is nothing but what? A type of a variable we are creating of a user defined data type. So now you have created a new data type, and that new data type is what? Item. You have created new data type item, and X is what? The variable of the data type. But when we are talking in terms of object oriented programming, X is what called as the object of your class item. Now to refer to the members of your class. Now who all are the members of your class? The variable number, the variable cost, they are the members of your class. Even the get data and the put data are the members of your class. These functions are also the members of your class. So to access this, I can write x.getData, I can write x.putData. Here if suppose अगर मुझे get data ऐसे नहीं call करना है, I can also write x.number is equal to something. But x.number I cannot access it over here. Why? Because number is private, so I cannot use it outside the class. Are you getting that? I will show you later. Okay, now if I'll execute this program, see what happens now. I'm getting the output. Number is equal to 200 and cost is equal to 150. Yes, all of you can see the output.
Yes, ma'am.
See, अभी program कैसे execute होगा, कैसे execute हुआ, let me tell you. First, your compiler started with main. It has executed, it has come inside that main function. When it has come inside the main function, it has saw this item and it has saw this X as the object. So when it saw this particular object, then your compiler searched for this class item. So where then the class code, it searched for this class item, and it has got to know that there is a class defined in the program. Then so object gets created. So object create होगा मतलब क्या होगा? Object is a kind of a variable. तो memory में ये variable के लिए एक location create हो जाएगा. ये object के लिए एक location create हो जाएगा. There will be a memory created for this object. And what all this object can hold? This object can hold the values for all these variables and functions. Okay, now to access these functions of your class, I have to use this object and then dot operator. So I have to write X, then dot operator. This dot is called as a dot operator to access your functions of the class or the member variables of the class. So I am writing X dot get data. Since your get data function is defined with two parameters, so I also need to pass two values. So when I am passing this, what happened when I am calling this x.getData, this function will get called and it will get executed. So A will get the value as 200 and B will get the value as 150.50, and that value will be given to number and cost. Okay. Now with that, number and cost just got that values, but it is not getting printed. When it will get printed? When I will write x.putData. That time this put data method is getting called and number and cost are getting printed. See, suppose now I'll just comment this statement, and if I'll execute, I will not get any output. Am I getting the output? No. Why? Because I have not called this function. So अगर मैंने इसको call ही नहीं किया तो ये execute ही नहीं होगा ये वाला part. Are you getting, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now I cannot write what I said. I can write x.getData, I can write x.putData, but I cannot write x.number. Suppose अगर मैंने यहीं पे suppose कुछ value दिया, number is equal to 50. I cannot do that. Why? Because if I'll do that, it will give me error. Now just see. Can you see the error? Can you see the error, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
What that error says, see, int item colon number is private within this context. Means what it is saying, since that number and cost are private, सी हमने यहाँ पे प्राइवेट नहीं लिखा है, बट बाय डिफॉल्ट मैंने क्या बोला, वो प्राइवेट हो जाता है. तो whenever it is private, you cannot access it outside the class. Within the class you can access it. If I write number is equal to 50 over here, it will not give me the error. But वो class के बाहर फिर वो unknown हो जाता है. It will be unknown outside the class. So that's why even if using object, if I am writing x dot number, I will get an error for this statement. Is this clear? I cannot write x dot cost also. Yes, is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now what I said, we can create any number of any number of objects of the same class. Suppose now I am creating one more object. I can, if I wanted to create another object, I can write item then space y, or like this also I can create, or I can like हम लोग जैसे दूसरा variables बनाते हैं वैसा simply we can write item x comma y. But what happens now, y becomes another object, that means y becomes another instant of your class. Okay, so with that also you can call the same functions. So then what I can write now, so here first of all, to identify the values with your object, I can simply write cout. Then you will call this functions with x. Then suppose एक मिनट. So what you can do with students, here you just write and the same way as we have written with x, we will be writing it with y. Get data, give some values. And if you'll execute this now, Can you see your separate values for x and y? Yes, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So just copy this code and then you can leave. We will stop here for today, okay?
Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am. Can we leave?
Bye, ma'am.